everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Grassroots Warriors. This is Wednesday evening, 8 p.m. I'm your host, Sherri Divband, and tonight I am joined by a really special guest. I'm so excited. I've been looking forward to this conversation for a few weeks now. Jessica Jones. I'll introduce you really quickly. She's just an amazing woman, and I'm excited to have met you recently at the Journey to Truth conference. We became friends. I wish we had time to spend a little more time together that week, but it was a little bit crazy just jumping around, but we got a little bit of time to hang out. I saw your presentation. It was really awesome. So Jessica Jones, she is a paranormal investigator. She's the Cryptid Huntress. She's a remote viewer. I mean, you do so many amazing things. And so I want to get into all of those things. So welcome to my channel, Jessica. It's nice to have you today.
Thank you, Sherri. I am so excited to be here. And it was such a pleasure meeting you too at the conference. And I also wish we could have talked more, but I tell you what, we were so busy with just all the amazing presentations and meeting all those people there. It was amazing. So I thank you for
it was
me.
Definitely nonstop, something to do. So it was really hard to see, to talk to everybody for long periods of time, but we got enough time together, and I was like, I like this girl. And so we've kept in touch, and I'm having you on the channel today because I was telling Jessica, to everyone watching, right before we recorded, I was like, this is not my area of expertise. So I'm like a child right now, and I can't wait to learn about all of this stuff. It's something I'm fascinated about. And we just started a series for our children's books called Luna. And the first episode was, we included Bigfoot. And so I'm just getting into it, and I've always been fascinated, but I don't know a lot. And so this is an area where I am just excited to sit back and listen to you tell me all the cool stuff. I'd like to get into Bigfoot and Dogman and the misconceptions, but also the truth that you found through your research and your field research and things like that. So I'd love to get into that. But maybe first, if you could tell us a little bit about your journey and how you even got into doing all of this. Like, where did this start?
Yeah, well, Sherri, it started when I was a little kid. I always had an interest in ghosts, aliens, UFOs, Bigfoot, okay, like all the monsters. And, when I was a kid, we only had Halloween shows, that had monsters and ghosts in them. And that was my big thing. So I remember always looking forward to October, because that's when all the scary shows would come on, and things that even unsolved mysteries. I'm totally dating myself right now, so people are going to know how old I am. But it was. I look forward to that kind of stuff. I'd go to the library and I'd check out all the books on ghosts, okay, because I just knew there was more out there, and I wanted to know more about it than just this 3D reality that we were living in. So, I was always into it. When I was a teenager, we had a lot of very interesting experiences, ghost experiences. I saw my first ghost. I say ghost like in quotes, because I look back and it's so unreal. Like, I'm not even sure if those were ghosts that I was seeing or something ET. And I'm going to get into that in the future, what I'm going to say, because at some point when you're young, like, the only thing that my brain could compute that out as were ghosts that I was seeing. Okay. And in my adult life, doing all this cryptid research, I've actually seen ETs up close. And I have to wonder now, like, well, were those ghosts actually ETs? Okay. And things like that. So life has gotten super weird, as you can imagine, being the cryptid hunter. Okay. But when I was a kid, I saw ghosts. I knew that people could communicate with dead and things like that. And my mom would take me to these psychic fairs when I was a young lady. And she actually got me into what I'm into today inadvertently. Okay. And I come from families, my mom and my dad's sides, that are very in tune and very much in tune with their psychic abilities. And although they didn't call it that, but possible like ET abductions with my great grandmother and my great aunt back in the 1980s. My dad's family, they lived in a haunted house and saw ghosts and things. So I was never really made fun of for being into this stuff. Around 2011, my mom was going to these Wednesday night community meetups with some friends, and they would always have a different speaker Okay. And sometimes it would be, let's just say, like a magician or a psychic or ghost hunters, or survivalist, like it was just it was a free for all show, like like presentation every Wednesday night. Well, one Wednesday night, they were having Bigfoot field researchers there. And my mom said, Jessica, you're going to want to come with me to this. This is going to be really cool. There are some Bigfoot guys. You might want to come. And I was like, okay. So I accompanied my mother, and that pretty much set me on a trajectory to where I am today. Going to that meeting and meeting those guys, they had really experienced Bigfoot. Okay. And I had never seen a Bigfoot. I figured they were real considering the other things I had seen and the research I had done from reading from being a kid. Um, and so I just went, I was in amazement at their presentation in North Georgia, where I'm from Georgia. And these guys were based out of North Georgia. They had evidence, like footprints and pictures, and they were all trained very heavily in tracking. They had backgrounds in search and rescue and military and stuff like that. And
so they were the real deal. They weren't, just faking it.
yeah, these are the real deal. Like this was like an A team of researchers. There was only like 4 of them. Okay. And they were a tight knit little team. And they also had a very strong connection to their psychic abilities as well. And they made that a part of their research. Being attuned to the paranormal and the mind, body, spirit aspect of Bigfoot. Okay. And I found that interesting. And so I had questions for them, and it involved, well, why have y'all never found a body of a Bigfoot? And where's the poop? I've never seen any Bigfoot poop. I'm a country
Right?
girl, and so yeah, they saw that I've had some questions. They were answering them, and after the presentation, I went and talked to them, and they invited me on their next expedition. And
Wow. Wait, so how old were you at the time?
It was 2011. So I mean, I was in my 30s. I was in my
Oh, okay,
30s.
okay,
Yeah,
okay.
I was in
So
my
you
early
weren't like
30s.
a teenager or anything like that.
No,
Yeah, yeah,
this was only 2011, so it was what, 12 years ago, something like that.
yeah. Okay, okay.
Um, yeah. So I was like, okay, well, I took him up on it. I was like, well, if I want to see for sure if Bigfoot's real, these are the guys that are going to show me. Okay. And so what better way to find out than going into the woods with strange men that I'd never met before?
Right.
So so they got me on their list of contacts and started sending me information about like what to bring on the trip, what to expect, like an operations order. And yeah, they were actually taking like a big group of people out that weekend. Later, I found out it was to see who meshed well with their team and see if they wanted to invite more people. They wanted some women on their team, I think, and just to see who was not that they were just looking for women on their team, but just different people to diversify the team a little bit. So yeah, so that's how I got into Bigfooting. And from the first time I ever went out into the woods up in North Georgia, I not only had Bigfoot experiences, I had UFO experiences and interdimensional stuff going on, and you name it. It was like ETs, and we've had portals open up and things like that. I mean, it's so much more than just Bigfoot out in the field. Yeah.
Okay, I
And
want
so,
you to tell us all about all of that. Like you can't just say that and not tell us the story. But I just
oh
want to
yeah.
say first that I truly admire you, Jessica, because when I was a kid, I was afraid of a lot of things. I was afraid of ghosts. I was afraid of the paranormal. And you were such like I could just imagine you as this young girl, just like I'm not afraid and like just wanting to know more. And I was the exact opposite of that, in fact. And so I listen to your story and I'm thinking to myself, wow, like I wish I could have been that way and wanting to learn more. And it wasn't until I was probably in my 20s and 30s till I was even open to any of that stuff. And to this day, the paranormal doesn't interest me at all because I don't even want to be around that energy. But I am interested in Bigfoot and all the other cryptids, and all of that just fascinates me because I believe there are a lot of misconceptions to all of that, which is why I wanted to have you on my channel today, because I think it's time that we get this information out there. And that's why I created the children's book too, because kids like to talk about that stuff. They don't want to call it them Sasquatch. You know, there's a whole debate going on, and if it's Bigfoot, Sasquatch, and what's the right one to say. And so, you know, there's a debate going on, and I think it's fun to get all up in it. But tell us that first experience you had. What did you see, and the paranormal, the portals, the Bigfoot. What did you see?
Okay. Well, and I also want, before I start, I want to say it. I think it is important that we're bridging all of these different facets of awakening consciousness of everybody by joining our forces, you know, and really sharing our stories. You know, I've been bringing in some of the guys from the secret space program onto my shows to talk about the things that they've experienced, because I feel like it bridges a divide, and it's giving us some of the missing pieces that us cryptid researchers have been looking for. And so I think it's just great that we're all working together on this, Sherri. So thank you.
I love it. I love collaboration.
Totally.
I love learning something I don't know and bringing it to people who don't even know that they don't know it, and they just listen to a show and they're like, wow, this is fascinating. I think it's a great time for all these people to bring their expertise together and share, because a lot of it is overlapping. You bring up a good point. You know, you're talking about Bigfoot. Next thing you know, there's ATs, and then there's portals. So this is important right now to share all of this information. So let's talk about your first encounter, and then we'll go from there.
I have goosebumps from head to toe right now. I really do.
Me too. Okay. I love this conversation.
That was amazing. Okay. So yeah, the first time I went out with that team, I met not only the most amazing humans. Okay. I had the time of my life. I really did. And I highly recommend it. If anybody gets an opportunity to do something you've never done before, just do it. Okay. Make sure you're safe. Okay. And that you're with people that you can trust. But I went with my gut on this, and that's something that we also need to start doing more, is going with our gut, following our intuition. And if something feels right and it feels good, just do it, you know, because that's how we get on our path. And that absolutely put me on the path that I'm on today. So I went out, and I had no expectations of finding Bigfoot. Okay. Because I'd seen, they didn't really have a lot of those shows back then about Bigfoot. And the ones they had, the Bigfooters look like total hillbillies and stuff, like, you know, like super. I think they do that on purpose in the media to make us not want to go do that stuff, because it's for people that aren't so smart, is the way they portray it on television. So, or they did back then, at least. Today it's a little better. Okay. But back when I started, I never intended to go public about what I was doing. And I'll get to that too down the line here. So the first weekend I went out, I met some amazing humans. I only figured, well, you know, if nothing else, I'm going to make new friends, and we're going to have a good camping trip, and it's going to be fun. And I can say I did it, you know, not knowing that this was going to be like part of my life's mission, you know. And so I got out there and met some of the people at the base camp, and I set up my tent. You know, I had practiced setting my tent up, Sherri, because I did not want to embarrass myself when I got out there, and I had practiced putting my tent up at my best friend's house, and her husband helped me. I was ready, girl. I was ready to get out there. But I set up my tent. I met everybody, and I told them right off the bat. I said, "Hey, I want to see if Bigfoot's real. I'll be bait. I don't care. Like, let me get out there and just show me, put me in some predicaments where, like, I'm going to stumble across a Bigfoot, or it's going to stumble across me, just so I can have the experience." Okay. And I think the guys kind of like that attitude. They liked it. They're like, all right, let's do that. And I think it did yield some results. I can't say it was Bigfoot results, but it was something. It was something. And I got to tell you, being attuned to the paranormal for all of my life, I think that really helped, being a little more psychically switched on. People who are that way, who are aware of our enhanced human capabilities, I guess you could say, you're like a beacon of light out in the woods. And I do believe that cryptids and the elementals, whatever's out there, is more drawn to you. And so I think that's why my team gets more action, maybe the most. It's just a thought. But yeah, I got out there. I went out with the first night I was there, and I was with a group of about 5 or 6 guys, I guess. We had all broken off into smaller teams, and I was with this group. we drove out to this place. It was like a field out in, this is, like I said, North Georgia mountains. And it's kind of like an open field. We later named this field the UFO field. That's what it's called now. But
wow.
that was before this night, or this was after that night. I mean, so whatever. We named it that the next night,
Okay.
and so we went. Sorry. Oh my God, my thoughts are going faster than my mouth right now.
Yeah,
Okay,
it happens to me all the time. I got you. Go ahead.
Okay, so I got out there to this field, and one of the guys said, "Hey, Jessica, I dare you to walk up that field by yourself to that tree line." And I was like, I'm not gonna lie, I was nervous. I was super nervous, and because they had seen a Bigfoot there the night before, is what they said, and they had some activity, and I didn't know if they were messing with me because you got to remember, I didn't know these people hardly at all, and I had just met most of them that day, and so I was like, okay, well, I put my little backpack on and took a deep breath, and it was about 100 yards from the bottom of the hill to the top to the tree line. And the goal was for me to walk by myself to that tree line while they sat down at the bottom of the hill watching me with their FLIRs, their thermal imaging cameras, like night vision cameras. And I figured if anything got me, at least they could tell my mom what happened to me. You know? And so I know that sounds horrible, but I felt comfort in that.
Mm-hmm.
Because,
Yeah.
but then again, in the back of my head, I also knew that nothing was going to happen to me. Like I knew like to try to not have fear. Okay, like don't have fear. Just do it. So I took a
Yeah.
deep breath and I started walking. And I gotta tell you, I was a little scared. And I got about halfway up the hill, and I heard one of the guys running at me really fast. And I could feel the energy of it. Like you could. Again, I played sports in college. I played rugby. I played soccer. Um, I know what it sounds like and what it feels like when somebody's running up behind me to tackle me. Okay, and that's exactly what I felt was about to happen. And I remember kind of thinking, wow, that's like not professional of those guys to do this at all. Like, why are they trying to scare me? Like, that's not cool.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
but I kind of braced for impact a little bit as I heard it get closer, and then something swept my legs out from behind me. It hit the back of my legs, and it kept going. This person, I thought it was a person, and as I looked over to my left, there was nobody there. But I had felt the wind. My legs got hit, and I felt the energy go right past me, and it just kept trucking. And I kind of like lost my balance a little bit, and I started. I immediately looked around because I was so confused. I was like, "Well, dang, that was so weird." But there were no logs, there were no sticks, there was nothing to hit me. Um, and so I just composed myself, and I was like, "All right, I'm just gonna keep going." And so I kept walking up to the tree line, and around that time, one of the guys did walk up behind me and said, "Hey, are you okay? We saw you kind of fling your arms up in the air a little bit." And I was like, "Yeah, I'm fine."
Yeah.
Uh,
They didn't
that was
know that you
my
had experienced that. They just kind of witnessed you moving weird,
they
and they were
saw,
like,
they
yeah,
saw when it happened. Yeah,
yeah,
but I said, did y'all see anything? And he said, "No, we didn't see anything. We just saw you like kind of fling your body a little bit, like something had happened, and we just wanted to make sure you're okay." Actually, throwing my arms up in the air was the distress call. So like they thought that like I'd kind of halfway like thrown my hands up when I lost my balance, and they were just checking on me. Thank gosh. Yeah, but it was nothing. There was nothing there, and so it was. So he actually walked back down to make sure there was nothing that I could have tripped over, and there was nothing there. So we walked back up to the tree line, and as we're standing there, I felt an urge to walk to the far right corner of the tree line. And one of the guys down below was watching me through his thermal imaging camera and saw a Bigfoot peek its head around the tree directly in front of me.
wow,
Um, but I couldn't see it because I didn't have any equipment to see it. I was just there. I was standing in the dark. It was pitch dark outside.
I can see ya.
Um, yeah, but I was drawn to it, and I just stood there, and it just stood there staring at me. So we decided to do investigate that field on the second night that I was there, and
Okay.
that's when the real stuff happened. Yeah,
Oh,
that's
okay.
it got dicey that night. That second night we were out there. So this is the first time I've ever been bigfooting. Okay, and And I said the next day I was super excited. I was like, oh, this is awesome. I want to go do something crazy again tonight. So y'all put me wherever, wherever I'm going to get the results. And so uh, one of the team members, he told me, we decided that he and I were going to go to that field again where that Bigfoot had peeked its head around the tree, and we were going to sit there from like 3 in the afternoon until about midnight that night, and we are going to sit there and blend into the environment, and in hopes that a Bigfoot would walk up on us at some point that night. And we were going to bring the whole team was going to come out and sit in the middle of that open field around 9 o'clock that night, and make a bunch of noise and act normal, like normal crazy campers and humans. And hopefully, whatever it was would walk through the woods and step on my partner and I.
Okay.
Well, so that's when things got kind of weird. Okay, when we went out there that day, and he and I were sitting out, and we went to the corner where near where that Bigfoot had been, and we were still trying to wrap our heads around what hit me on my legs, because they were telling me about how Bigfoots can cloak. Okay, and that's where they go invisible, and they can run up and they can be right in front of you and you never know it. And so sometimes the story is sometimes the juvenile Bigfoots will mess with you and do things like what happened to me that night. It's almost like an initiation rite, okay, yep. for the Bigfoots. And I did not feel fear from that. It was not malicious. It was playing with me, whatever that was. It was definitely playing. Okay, so night 2, we're sitting out there during the day. We're both wearing camouflage, and he had on a ghillie suit. Okay, and it was just like, okay, this is too much. It's too fun, right? I was having so much fun. But the day was getting kind of long, and it was started to get a little bit dark. We'd been sitting there for a while trying to blend into the trees and the brush, and we were checking our equipment. Okay, like we carry ghost hunting equipment and stuff similar to that, even though I don't like ghost hunting, because to me that is talking with lower vibrational frequencies, and I'm not a fan of that. Okay, but I had that equipment from a few years ago. I'd bought it a couple years before that. I had a series of a lot of people died, and things like that. And you just get curious when you're younger. So I had some of that equipment, and so we take that out there. We use that stuff, the EVP recorders, the RIM pods, the K2 meters. We even have Geiger meters to test radiation levels when we're out there. We found that through all this research, we found that whenever something paranormal happens, we have a spike of radiation that happens, which is interesting. But
so we're out there. Thought about that.
Beg your pardon?
I wouldn't have even thought about that, but that makes a lot of sense, especially if there's extraterrestrial or galactic, portals and things that pass through. You would definitely see some of that.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah, and when we've actually documented a portal, I'm going to get in that in just a second too. We've documented a portal and sent people inside of it, and we have it on video. Yeah. So
I don't know if I volunteer for that. I'm not sure.
Please don't. No, it's dangerous. It's dangerous. But so we were out there, and we started checking our equipment, our recording devices and things like that, and our clocks. And we noticed that his equipment had gone forward an hour and mine had gone backwards an hour. And that was very odd, because we had already checked it before when we first got out there that day. And so our time had changed on both of our different pieces of equipment. And so we thought that was odd. The sun was going down. We started seeing lights in the sky, and not just regular lights. It was a beautiful night. We were in the tree line, but the open field was in front of us, and we were seeing like airplanes, but they were moving in triangular patterns. Okay, and they were right above us, super high up in the sky though. And we didn't think a whole lot about it, but we were like, okay, well, that's cool. There's UFOs out here, Then a bright light showed up on the side of the mountain, right across from where we were sitting. And it looked like to us, your rational brain wants to make sense of what you're seeing. So we were trying to say to ourselves, that's a truck going down the mountain, and then you start thinking, well, there's nowhere for a truck to drive on that mountain. Okay. And then we're thinking, well, it has to be hikers holding a lantern. And then we started thinking, well, the light is actually above the trees. It's not inside the tree, but you're trying to make sense. You're trying to rationalize what you're seeing. And turns out there was this big bright white light, like an orb, a gigantic white light, and it was moving in a straight horizontal line across the mountain, back and forth and back and forth. And we couldn't explain it. Okay. And I had my recorders going, and we had some equipment out and stuff, but at some point I do remember getting a little bit tired, and I remember kind of feeling like I was dozing off a little bit, but we were talking the whole time, and I still had my recorders on, and we didn't think a whole lot of it. Okay. And the group came out. They were loud. They made a bunch of commotion. They started seeing red lights in the trees, and they thought that was he and I, about 10 feet from where we were sitting, because we did not give our location away to those people. There were red lights in the trees, about where we were sitting, like the same height as where we were sitting, but 10 feet away, which was odd. And that was about the only thing that happened that night. Okay, were those weird lights. And so, a lot of times when you have things happen, you don't realize it until you get back to base camp. You have some experiences. We may even have weird dreams. But then you go back and listen to your recordings, and then you realize that something happened while you were out there. Okay, so we go back. Everybody kept telling me, Jessica, you're acting strange. I was like, y'all don't even know me. How do y'all know I'm acting strange?
Yeah, they just do.
Yeah, but they knew that something was off. Okay, and I just attributed it to, like, I was hungry and I was tired, and went to bed. But we knew that something had happened out there that day and that night. It took me about a week or two to get up the courage to listen to that recording. And I had the head of the team. By the way, they did ask me to join their team that weekend, so I became a member.
Of course they did. Yeah,
they did. I've been a member ever since 2011. Enigma Research Group. And so anyways, the head of the team came over to my apartment. I lived in Decatur, Georgia at the time, and he came over so we could just to listen to that recording, because we both knew there was something on it, but we just didn't know what. And we listened to it, and you can hear very clearly what sounds like bottle rockets going off all around my partner and I. Pew, 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 all around us around the time that our equipment was malfunctioning. And weird stuff happened, right? There were some other things that happened, right? And I knew that the head of my team, and at least the guy that was out there with my partner, they were actually trained in remote viewing. And I had never heard of remote viewing before. And they had actually remote viewed what happened to us and let us know what it kind of gave us some details on what they thought had happened. And it did involve an ET craft, like an extraterrestrial craft that had kind of located my partner and I. That was that light that we were seeing. And it did not, we didn't get abducted or anything, but it did come over and basically put us to sleep. And it scanned us and got some information from us basically while we were knocked out, and then it flew off. And so we knew that there was something very strange going on out there. And this is where we have all this Bigfoot activity. Mm-hmm. And so we knew there was a connection with ET, with the Bigfoot. At that point, we didn't know for positive, but we knew that they were in the same vicinity. And so the head of my team decided, there's no coincidence that we're all here together and we're having these experiences together. I'm going to teach you guys remote viewing. And he's like, you don't have to do it, but it's going to be hard and it's going to be a long process, but you guys, it'll be very beneficial in the future if you guys want to do that. And we'll be able to see into events that happen to us out in the field. We can remote view locations before we go there. We can look into anything. So we spent the next several years getting together, like days at a time, spending the night at a country. Actually, it was at my farm. I have a farm out in the country, with no Wi-Fi, no internet, no television, no nothing, just a house. And some nature pastures and stuff. And we learned remote viewing for years, weekends at a time together as a team. And yeah, so that's kind of how I got into all of this, is doing that. And I am now a member of 3 different research teams, all down here in the South. And we do a lot of research. I'm out in the woods a lot. I was just out in the woods this past weekend and the weekend before, and I get out whenever I can. But yeah, we do a lot of interesting stuff, all over the South.
What are some of your favorite things that you have come across over the years in your field research? What are some of the things that you are just like your fondest memories, or what you've learned the most?
Oh my gosh. Well, my favorite memories are a lot of just being with my team, first of all, because they're just amazing humans, and we're family, and getting out in nature is so rewarding, and it's like recharging your batteries, and I highly recommend it to everybody. Just get out in nature, and but be aware of your surroundings, because I know it's out there, and there's a lot of interesting, scary things out in the woods. But don't let it stop you from getting in the woods, okay? Because these things won't hurt you if you don't have any bad intentions against them, for the most part. But my favorite good fond memories would be I just seeing or experiencing the Bigfoot interactions with them out in the field. You can hear them not communicating with us potentially, but communicating amongst each other, and triangulating around our camps, and whooping and hollering, and whistling at night. That's always fun. And also, some of my favorite are being out in the mountains and hearing animals that aren't really regional to the area uh, making noise, and then you realize that's not actually a cow in the field, or whatever animal they're mimicking. Because Bigfoots mimic animals, and sometimes you'll hear something and you'll think, that's odd. I don't think that animal's supposed to be around the mountains up here, And you'll say, for instance, a cow. You'll hear mooing, like really loud mooing, and it'll moo so much, and then on this one instance, the animal, it sounded like an animal, and then it's almost like the Bigfoot knew that we knew it wasn't a cow, and it started laughing hysterically at the end of the last moo. Like stuff like that. It's just fun.
Yeah.
It's really fun. Also, we have, and as humans, we have the ability to communicate with cryptids. Okay, and that goes to the remote viewing training that I've done. I suppose I think anybody has the ability, but Sherri, you know very well about remote viewing, and just tapping into these human enhanced capabilities that we have. It's all about frequency, and it's all about they're very telepathic. Let's just put it that way. A lot of these cryptids are, and that is how they communicate, not only verbally, but they know when we're coming out there. They know when we're going to be there, and we can kind of. And I'm not saying we do this every time, but sometimes if we choose, we can be like, okay, let's put the intention out there, and that we're going to be there. And they know. I mean, we'll try to invite them down into base camp and stuff, But
I mean, I think they know our intention. So if you're coming out there and you're trying to hunt them or do something to harm them, or you have malintentions, they already know they not only can smell you from miles away, but they can feel your energy. They know what you're there for, because they are master communicators through telepathy, because that's how they communicate, and they do vocalize, but that is not really a form of that's only one form of communication they use. Primarily they're going to use telepathy, because that's how they do it. And these are interdimensional beings, and I think that's the coolest part. So when you talked earlier about them cloaking, yes, they can cloak, but that's when they come into our dimension. But sometimes we can walk into, because the dimensions are all overlap each other. So you're out in the woods with your team, and you happen to be, probably there's hundreds of them in another dimension, just in the same land that you're on. And so sometimes you might, I could just picture one juvenile just running through you, that you happen to be at a higher vibration, because you are of pure intention. You have no ill will. You genuinely respect and want to know more about them. So what happens is it raises your vibration. Now you're kind of fluctuating in and out of their dimensional field. So they're running through thinking they're going to run right by you, and they hit you, because they're like, whoa, And so I think that's also very much a possibility a lot of the times is these bleed throughs of dimensions. And so maybe it was nefarious, or not really nefarious. Maybe it was them kind of messing with you, joking around, but it could also have been something like that. And we don't know for sure. But I think that happens a lot. That's why we have so many sightings of Bigfoot. And that's why I had this Bigfoot come to me. The soul of this Bigfoot literally woke me up in the middle of the night one night, and I downloaded this entire book of what he wanted, how he wanted me, what he wanted me to say. It was a juvenile, and how he wanted me to introduce Bigfoot to children, and not introduce like they don't know, but just to bring the information forward. And he was very kid-like, but also very mature. So it just threw me off a little bit. But they want to communicate with us, and I think that it's now's the time that these interdimensional beings are trying to reach out to those that are interested for the right reasons. So our intention is everything. So you guys go out into the woods, you're going to get a lot of action because they know that you're not there to harm them. But those that come out there, those are the horrible stories that we hear where people get hurt. Because I think a lot of times they're defending themselves. So maybe we can get into that a little bit about, let's starting with Bigfoot, and then we'll move on to Dogman and others. What are some of the biggest misconceptions that you could talk about with regard to Bigfoot, and how can you tell people that those are in fact misconceptions based on contradicting research from when you're out in the field to see something different? Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the one thing that I try to tell people, and I really caught some flack, or is it flack or slack? I don't know.
I don't know.
I think it's flack. I don't know. When I first started going public, and I didn't go public at all for 10 years, Sherri. After I was doing this research, I waited 10 years, and I didn't even do it on purpose. Going public, it was because I happened to meet my friend who was volunteering at Camp Disclosure about 2 years ago, and word got out that one of my team, the head of my team, had written a book about our research called the Meadow Project. And somebody, we were talking, and somebody made the connection that I was one of the people in that book. And so I got asked to speak at that conference, and I got thrusted on the stage, and it's been like just snowballing ever since. Okay, so here I am with you. But when I first started going on podcasts and talking about Bigfoot, I will talk about how Bigfoots can be dangerous. Okay, they can be very dangerous, and that's something that I've experienced. And because to me, Bigfoots, I call them Bigfoots. I mean, I even got people that were like, they're Sasquatches, they're not Bigfoots. Well, I call them Bigfoots. Okay, and I know that's some people have an issue with that, and it's okay. But that's just that's what I call them. And but I'll say Sasquatch too, but it's just my preference. Because that's what I've always known. But I was not hesitant to talk about the dangers of trying to leave out food for Bigfoots, to leave gifts and things like that sometimes, because they're very much like humans. Okay, they are, to me, they're just big hairy humans. Okay, and they're just like humans in a lot of ways. Bigfoots are, sometimes you're going to find really nice ones that are loving and caring and have like high vibrational energy. And then you're going to find some that have a bad day, and they could be a serial killer, or they might want to eat you. I don't know. So there's just a wide range of the forest people, I guess you can call them. There's a wide range of personalities, intelligence levels even. There are some that are just wanting to go look for food all day, and they're just hungry, more kind of animalistic in a way, that can even be scavengers and stuff. There's some that are highly advanced and are very attuned to their psychic abilities and stuff, and communicate with us. And some that are just far beyond our intelligence, I'm sure. Okay, it's just us little measly humans. So there's just a wide range, but nonetheless, they're very territorial. All of them are, and there are some that you just don't want to cross their boundaries, and so it's important to have a healthy dose of respect. But they're not all just sunshine and rainbows, and so that's one thing that I do like to I do get that message out, because it can be very dangerous if people just go in the woods and just assume that they're going to be safe. it's important to protect yourself energetically, first of all, and spiritually, before you go into the field or into the woods, for sure. And also with people want to give them offerings and stuff like food and things like that. And that can be very dangerous too. And so I like to let people know, like, it may not be a good idea to go take that rotisserie chicken out there to the campground as an offering to the Bigfoots. Because what happens when the next campers come out the next weekend and they don't have a rotisserie chicken, they're going to be mad, and they may, throw rocks at you all weekend and stuff, but also at the same time, I'm not out there hunting. I know that my name on Spaced Out Radio, I am a host over there, and I became the Cryptid Huntress when I went on that radio show, and I am a Cryptid Huntress, but I don't hunt. Like, it's not like a hunt, like harming them in any ways. It's just going out and just experiencing them basically and researching. But yeah, as long as you have a good intention about you, that they will most likely leave you alone and just be curious about you. With that, absolutely. But just be careful and be safe with them, and that's the main thing. Also, I get asked a lot, do I think that they're ancient beings? Are they extraterrestrial? Yeah, I think all of it. I think they're interdimensional. They're not just flesh and bone. For people who aren't super familiar with the Bigfoot community, there are two camps of two different ways of thinking or perceiving them. There's the primate in the woods, the strictly flesh and bone crowd. And then there's the woo, they call it the woo camp. Okay, I didn't know that was the name, but apparently I'm woo. Okay, and that's the people who believe that there's a supernatural element to the Bigfoots, and they can travel interdimensionally and cloak and do all these supernatural things, and perhaps they don't live on this planet all the time, that kind of a thing. There's that. So, and then there's an in between where people aren't sure.
I think it's both. I mean, how can we possibly ever say anything with 100% certainty? That's like saying that's like some other species coming here that's never met humans and assuming that we're all the same. And what you said about Bigfoot is important. And I think it's just with any species, not all dogs are friendly. So it is the nature of it. And I think that there are very primal ones that perhaps have veered off into another lineage where they are more animalistic and they're more spiritual, flesh and bones, and those are the ones that are more dangerous. And I think that they probably, aren't going to be as nice to people if they happen to run into them in the woods. And then there is everything in between, all the way up into what you just mentioned, the spiritual, ones that are highly spiritual, interdimensional, off planet. I feel very connected with that. That's all of those things, just like people are all of those things. And you're right to mention that there are dangerous ones out there. Just like you can't just go out in the middle of the night in any town as a young woman or a man and assume everybody you meet is going to be super nice and honest and not harm you. I mean, it's just you have to use a little bit of common sense with it. But I think our intention is everything, and we tend to attract the vibration that we give out. So if we're in the vibration of like fear, judgment, rage, we're going out in the woods, and we disrespect. Humans do have a tendency of disrespecting the earth. We go out there camping. I go camping once a year with my family, sometimes twice, sometimes more. We've done, and it boggles my mind to see some of the people that camp that leave their trash and just everywhere, like they just go and they leave stuff everywhere. And that's very disrespectful. Obviously, to us it is, but to them they don't. So their Bigfoot is going to be very territorial because they live there just like the animals live there, and so there's an element of respect. I think that is necessary on all levels from all of us, which is a big part that we forget. A lot of humans think that we're the top of the food chain, top of the power chain, top of the everything chain, and everything needs to bow to us. And I think that's a big lesson that many people are learning right now. That's not the case. And so, but I like
reality is upside. our realities are getting turned upside down in every way right now. A lot of people, and that's why, and that's why it's really important for all of us to come out and talk about the things that we know and the things we've experienced, because a lot of people are experiencing things they've never experienced before, including seeing monsters that aren't supposed to exist. Okay, and so yeah, with our realities getting flipped upside down, we're looking for answers, and so yeah, that's why if people who've had experiences with this stuff, it's important for us to talk out about it, speak out about it.
And you mentioned, just to get a little bit, darker for a moment, you spoke in your presentation about these beings that were near government facilities and were attacking people. Can you talk about that a little bit? Because, there is a dark side to some of these hybrid beings that are either, we don't know, are they created by the government? Are they not? Are they extraterrestrial? We don't know. But you want to talk about that, what you know about that a little bit? Part of it?
Absolutely. Yeah, I got goosebumps. I keep getting goosebumps, Sherri. What's going on here? I don't know. Okay. So, yes, I feel like it's important to, and that was not even part of my presentation for the conference until the night before. My computer got zapped at the airport on the way in. And so I wasn't able to have my normal presentation that I was going to show. So I kind of switched it up, and I included the part that's a little bit darker last minute. Because I feel like it's important for us to know that our government does have programs going on. There's these underground facilities. I do believe that they're cloning animals for, I guess, from what I've been told, there's a breeding program with Dogman and even Bigfoot as well. And it's been going on since the 1950s. But they're using these dogmen, okay, as soldiers, super soldiers, assassins, and things like that. And that was coming up in my data for these remote viewing targets that I do. Now, okay, so I mentioned earlier that my team was taught remote viewing, and a lot of the things that we remote viewed, it was like, it's all coordinate remote viewing and energetic remote viewing, like different modes we've been taught. And that's part of the reason I wasn't public, because we don't really talk about our remote viewing stuff very often at all publicly. And I kind of went rogue, and I so enjoyed remote viewing. It's one of my favorite hobbies. And I was being asked to maybe remote view possible attacks on humans. I was tasked with targets that involved stories of where people had been mauled to death. And it was suspected it was a dogman, but of course the local news was saying it was a pack of wild dogs. And there was just mysterious deaths that were happening. And it's been recent. In the past couple of years, we've had a lot of deaths of people who were mauled to death by packs of wild dogs. And it just didn't seem, it got it was very suspicious, like I said. And so I started getting tasked with some of these targets to see what happened to these people. And I started seeing not only when I was remote viewing, like Dogman and like werewolf sightings and stuff like that. My data was going underground as well, where these things happen, and there were facilities underground, such as the Land Between the Lakes in Kentucky. I guess it's a national forest, and a lot of the places where even my team and other Bigfoot teams do research are in our national forests across the country, and people were going missing from these forests. There's a book series called Missing 411 by David Paulides. And I have read the North American version, that edition of his book. And it is terrifying. The number of hikers and campers, just people enjoying their weekend in the woods with their families. They go missing out of these national parks. We're talking like hundreds, thousands. Like we're talking about thousands and thousands of people have gone missing with no reports. Like there was no tally of these people anywhere. And David is an investigator. He's a former Bigfoot researcher, the guy who wrote the book series. They didn't even want to give him this information about all these people who had gone missing out of our parks. So we're making this connection between not only Bigfoots being in all these national parks right now. They are also, if you put a map of the Bigfoot sightings, and there's the Bigfoot mapping project, you guys can go find them online. You can find how many Bigfoot sightings have been in your area that have been reported. And trust me, there's way more than would have been reported. I can promise you.
Sure. Yeah, definitely.
But if you overlaid that map on top of our cave systems in the United States, they correlate. If you overlaid those on top of the dumb bases, the deep underground military bases, they overlap. Okay. There's a whole lot of overlapping with cryptids, UFO sightings, underground bases, and cave systems. Go figure, right?
These national parks, do you think the national parks were made national parks so they could be government owned because of all of the things you just mentioned?
Yes, I think so. Yes, it's a high probability. Yes,
Of course.
I think so. And so yeah, so I'm remote viewing like these things where people have been mauled to death, and it's not fun doing that, y'all. Sherri, it's not fun. Remote viewing any kind of death, but of course, like my high priority targets usually are of missing people, cold cases. Law enforcement needs remote viewers, or they've exhausted all their outlets to solve these cases. They'll sometimes shoot some cases over to the head of their team. He'll send them out to us, and I have found, if I get a high priority target, I usually know it's probably a missing person, and I usually find I locate like a person in this target, and you got to remember, I'm given a set of numbers. That's all I have, and I'm seeing people, and I'm hearing gunshots. I'm asking them what happened to them, and they're telling me when I do a deep mind probe, I got in a fight with my friend, and then I can locate like where their bodies are buried or whatever, it's that kind of stuff. So I've already been dealing with that already. And as you know, like we're taught to protect ourselves before we go into these targets and after we come out of them. And so that's how I'm able to do this stuff. Okay. And for anyone who's wondering,
Yes.
but with the maulings and things like that, I was seeing that it wasn't a pack of wild dogs. It was like one large animal that was attacking these people. And even if I called it a zombie bear, I don't know. Sometimes we don't label things, but we also are trying to write out the analytic overlay as to what we think it is, like what our brain's computing it as. And I'm seeing what I can describe as like a zombie bear, like killing these people and stuff. But granted, these areas where these people are being killed and they're dying, they're right here on these national forests and on the edges of them. And or the land between the lakes, families have been killed there that I've remote viewed. And so, and they're tied to underground facilities that are underneath these national forests. And I think that the public needs to be made aware of this stuff. Unsuspecting people, their bodies, they go missing, their children go missing, and the government doesn't, I'm not going to say they don't keep track of it, they don't keep track of it publicly.
Okay. So we don't want to scare people into not going in the woods and not going to parks. That's not our purpose here. So what are some of the things that you can recommend as somebody who's an avid, camper and field researcher? What are things, because I know, Jessica takes her son out into some of these field projects and I take my children camping. So, we're responsible about it. So what are some of the ways that you recommend people go out, even not with children, just as adults? Like, what can they do to protect themselves?
Yes, that is a great question. And I do take my son camping. And the last 2 times I took him camping, we actually ended up sleeping in the back of my truck. Okay, because it was safe. We locked the doors. I have an SUV, so so it was safe that way. I never take him where we actually do our research. Speaking of which, I just heard him walk in the door. So, but I never take him out to where we do the research because that's very dangerous. Where we go, I do recommend being very aware of your surroundings at all times. Never going alone into the woods. Okay. And I highly recommend everybody get out in the woods. Okay. Don't live in fear. That is the last thing that I want is for anybody to live in fear. I don't live in fear. Protect yourself energetically and spiritually. Don't go picking berries. Okay. That's like the number one thing in the David Paulides series is the people go picking berries and that's how they go missing. That's the last time they were seen. I don't know what it is about picking berries. Okay. But if you're going hiking, a good rule of thumb, as they say, is don't be the first in line and don't be the last. Okay. If you can help it.
Yeah.
Stay in the middle. I know that sounds so like basic, but and if you have children, make sure your children are in the middle of you and your partner or whoever's there. Like always try to have like two adults with you if you can. Never go by yourself to the woods. I don't recommend it at all. I mean, I know a lot of people do and they're comfortable doing it, but it's not safe doing that if you can. And if you do go by yourself, no matter what, always let somebody know where you are and let somebody know where when you're going to be back. I think it's a great idea to take like a GPS spot system where you can hit a button and it lets people know where you are. It sends out your coordinates to your loved ones, and it can call in emergency workers if you get lost. Because a lot of times people that go missing, they just get lost or they get injured, and they're not being taken by aliens and stuff. They just fall off the side of a mountain. Or a cougar gets them or something. I don't know, but it's not always paranormal. But I can tell you something very interesting that my team did document, and that was a portal out in the woods at an undisclosed location. And so that's another avenue as to where some of these missing people could potentially be going. And we're talking with and working with some of the guys who have been part of the secret space programs. I do know that it is very possible that there are portals out in the field and people potentially get taken for nefarious purposes and things, potentially to be in these underground bases and off planet and wherever they're taking them. So if you'd like for me to get into that.
Yeah, go ahead. Definitely. Okay. Go ahead.
Okay. So about 5 years ago, our team, I have another team, it's called Anomalous Studies and Observation Group. And, and we research all over the South. We go to areas of super high strangeness. We have one undisclosed location. We call it the Meadow. And we've been researching there for, I guess about, 7 years or more. I can't remember when we first started there, but 2015, I think.
Okay.
So we started researching there, and there was definitely a bunch of high strangeness going on. We were having everything from like Bigfoot activity to ETs, light beings, a lot of anomalous stuff, a lot of orbs. We have tons of orbs, Sherri. Like everywhere we research, we have orbs, different colored orbs, different consistencies, like transparent or solid. They'd form into triangles and shapes, and they chase us through the woods. Some of them will float in your tent at night and just kind of hang out and then float back out. A lot of orb activity. There are times where one of my teammates, Bob, the guys are watching him through their FLIRs and their thermal cameras, and he just turns into like a ball of light and like shoots across the field. Weird stuff. There was one night when I was hiking into the meadow, and I heard a woman's voice, and she screamed out, she yelled, she didn't scream. She goes, "Time travel," really loud from across the creek. And there's no way to access that part of the creek, on foot in the middle of the night without getting eaten up by something. And so it took me about a month or two to realize that was my voice. That was me that said that.
Crazy.
Which was weird. And the two people that were with me didn't hear it at all. But anyways, I digress. There's just a whole lot of weirdness that goes on out there. And so there was one night where we had a lot of activity out there that weekend. We were there for a weekend, 4 days, 5 days for some of the guys. I was there for a weekend. I had a small child. My son was really young at the time. So I went home right before the team went back out into the meadow Saturday night. And that's when all the action happened, of course. But I was at my house, and my son was having orbs floating around his head. And his father, who I was married to at the time, he was filming my son. And my son was on my elliptical machine, and he was, being all cute. And my husband at the time was filming him. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden, these two balls of light showed up in the camera. You could see them. He called me inside. He said, "Jess, come over here. You're going to love this." And I walked in there, and my son was watching these balls of light fly around his head. And he goes, "Mom, ball." And I could see them with my own eyes too. And I started saying, "Are those bugs? Like, what is that?" his dad could not see them at all with his own eyes. He could only see them through his camera, okay, on his screen. And then one of the orbs shot into the camera and it cut the camera off. Okay, well, so that actually showed me, okay, not everybody is on the frequency to see this stuff. Okay, because if my son and I could see it, but my husband at the time could not see that. That proved to me, that was like great research right there. Okay, like not everybody can see what I see, and that was proof. And my son too, I was really proud of my son for seeing that too. But anyways, that was the same night that I had left the meadow. My team went out there that same night as the orbs. They dispersed around the meadow, and there was one team of 3 people that was sitting on one end of the meadow looking with their thermal imaging camera. One of them was looking through it, and he saw a gigantic square show up in the middle of the meadow. And he thought he was seeing things. He thought his eyes were messing up. And so he handed his camera to the next guy and said, "Hey, look over here and see if you see anything." And then he noticed it was a cube. It was actually a cube. It was 3-dimensional, but it was only visible through a thermal imaging camera. Okay, where you could see it was a temperature change in the environment. It also looked as though it had a door on it and like crosses on each side, like X's. So it looked like it was definitely anomalous, but potentially something could have been man-made, but you could only see it through that camera, through the imaging device. So they radioed over to some of the guys across the field, and they said, "Hey, y'all go check this thing out. There's like this box or something in the field. Like it's an open field. This thing's not supposed to be there." And so Kristen, one of the girls on my team, she thought to like grab her camera, her thermal imaging, or her FLIR camera actually, turned it on and filmed the entire incident of the 3 men walking from across the field over to this box. And it's the size of like a shed behind your house, you know, like a work shed or something. They walked over to this thing. They could not see it with their own eyes. These are both search and rescue guys, former military, both of them. One of them special forces guy, both trained in remote viewing. Okay, so they know energy shifts. They know when things are odd and off. They got up to this cube. 2 of them walked directly over to it. And as they walked over, they were guided over to it because they couldn't see it. As they were guided over to it, both of their heat signatures, which were white hot, disappeared.
Oh.
Okay. And you got to remember, this is an open field. Like there's nothing to hide their heat signatures at all. So they disappeared. They said that it was like walking through a black velvet curtain. And as they walked through the curtain, the temperature changed. It got a little bit colder. The stars disappeared. The vegetation on the ground went from brushy to smooth. And they realized there was something off. So they backed out, and then their heat signatures reappeared in the camera. And of course, everybody was confused. And as they reemerged out of this thing, and they didn't know they were even in anything, you know, they were just standing in an open field still. But the cube shrunk down in size as they're in the camera. You can see it in the video, and then it moved and it disappeared.
Wow.
So it just.
But they could have been trapped. I mean, had they not backed up and realized they were in a portal, they could have been taken away to who knows where that went.
Exactly. And you know, and the only way that we could describe that was a portal, and it might not have even been a portal, but that's what we call it. We have remote viewed it. We do believe it was a type of portal, but I got to say, I don't think that was a natural portal. I think that might have been made by, and I don't even want to say human. It could have been ET made, maybe human. I do think that humans have the technology to create portals and things like that. And I mean, who knows? And so that makes us wonder, well, are these devices, whatever that was that they walked in, is that where people are going when they go missing? Are they just walking into these? Are people being targeted? You know, it's another rabbit hole.
It's almost like a trap, like a trap, portal trap, like a human trap. That's interesting.
Well, and we had also found, so we find footprints often that disappear in midair. Okay, it's almost like you'll see, well, you'll be following a track line, and that's like the Bigfoot like footprints, Sasquatch footprints, and then they just disappear in midair. And I say midair, but it's just like they're just they stop. We've also gone out there and found tire marks from a vehicle, and vehicles are not able to get out to this place. Um, Tire marks, just like a couple of feet of it, like a tire mark or a few feet or whatever. And it was right there around the area where the portal was. So it makes you wonder about that too. Like, are vehicles coming in and out of these things?
In and out of there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, what
So,
about Dogman? What that's a subject that, a lot of people fictionalize and I'm sure you have a lot of information on the
mhm.
contrary. And yes, there was the government facility, but I'm sure just like Sasquatch, Bigfoot, there are different breeds, different types. Have you
Mhm.
heard of any friendly dogmen?
Yes, there's all sorts of different types of dog men and dog women. We can't leave them out. Okay.
Yes.
But but yeah, I have never experienced a dog man personally, but I have gone to places to research the dog men and investigate where dog men have been. A matter of fact, I was there this past weekend. I went to two different places last weekend with dogman activity, and we have to be super careful when it comes to dogmen. Now, I do believe that there are dogmen that are indigenous to this planet. I absolutely do. They're ancient. I do believe there are stories of the Native Americans even trading with them. Okay, dogmen and Sasquatch, the forest people. Um, I do believe that a lot of them are native to this land. But then again, there are also stories of them being extraterrestrial races of dogmen that have come here. And talking to some of the secret space program guys, they interacted with some extraterrestrial dogmen, I guess you could call them. And so, also, in addition to that, just like a lot of the things that are so good and so pure on this earth, uh, they've been taken and they've been corrupted. Okay. Um, like Bigfoot, for instance. I'm not saying Bigfoot's corrupted by any means, but there are, what I've been told recently, there have been breeding programs of Bigfoots and dogmen and werewolves even that are bred within our with agencies. I don't even want to say our government because I don't even know anymore. It's just agencies are they're groups, even the elite potentially. They take in dogmen, I've been told, as security guards and things like that. So they've been used in wars, from what I've been told, from World War II and also the Vietnam War. Some of the dogmen, their handlers, the breeding program has taken them over to Vietnam to go raid the tunnels and things, get into places where humans really can't get. Like, not that humans can't get down there, but it's very dangerous. Um, so I don't know. I think that there's some that have been, I'm just going to say, kind of corrupted into
Yeah.
being trained killers and assassins and things like that. So there's that you have to watch out for too, and that comes up in my data sometimes with the dogmen in some of these national parks. And I think there's a lot more than we know of as far as dogmen go. There's a lot of them, but they stay hidden for the most part. I don't think that they want to be seen. Um,
Yeah, I agree.
yeah, and it may be because they are being kept track of. I do think that our government has chips in some of them. The ones in the breeding programs, I think they're chipped. They have collars. They have handlers and all that kind of stuff. So I know it's a weird little rabbit hole to go down, but we're talking about it today. So
That's what Okay, sorry about that, everybody. We had a little bit of a snafu. I think we got a little bit too on point with our conversation, and we got cut out, and the Zoom just went out. So we're starting again. So Jessica, continue to get back to Dogman a little bit, and we're gonna end it on a positive note here.
okay, for sure. All right, now my computer's doing something weird too. Okay, so hopefully you can hear me.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I wanted to end this on a positive note because I know we were talking about Dogman being kind of like there's a corrupted aspect to it. and they are being used for potentially for bad deeds and things like that. But the majority of people who have experienced dogmen, all the reports that I've gotten, the people that I know personally who have had interactions with the dogmen, it's been not bad. It's not bad. It's actually just surprising, and they weren't harmed in any way. They were just scared because, listen, those are scary looking creatures. They look like they have like a human body with a dog head, like a German Shepherd, usually is the way they're described, and hands kind of like a human, kind of like a raccoon, and dog legs. Okay, so it can be very scary, but the majority of interactions that I've heard about with dogmen have not been negative. Okay, so I just wanted to say that. That's all.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, our intention today isn't to have a conversation about all the negative aspects of these beings, because the point is to bring out all the information, the good, the bad, and just to raise awareness so people can, bring it to the surface of their consciousness and make your own choices and decisions, and perhaps inspire you to look further into it, that you can. But I just want to reiterate, we don't want anyone to be afraid. This is supposed to be a fun conversation. I'm learning stuff too, because I don't know a lot of what you're saying. Your research just fascinates me. So we are going to do a part 2, because this is just scratching the surface. And so we'll come back again, but we'll wrap it up today, because for whatever reason, the universe is there's something not wanting us to continue, and we're having all these issues with the electronics. So why don't, before we get cut off again, Jessica, tell everybody how they can get a hold of you or learn more about your research, or you have a YouTube channel. I'll put all of that in the description as well, but just let everyone know how they can find you.
Okay, perfect. I just realized my earbud's not even working now. Okay, so I can be found at the cryptidhuntress.com. That's where you can find all of my shows and the events that I'm going to be speaking at. Pretty much everything is on my website. You can go to it's got a link to my YouTube channel, all my social media sites. I do have a YouTube channel, that's the cryptidhuntress.com. And you guys can find me there. Did I just say that again? The YouTube channel is the Cryptid Huntress.
Yes, Cryptid Huntress.
I've got my entire computer screen is all messed up over here on the side. So yeah, it's so weird how we've gotten all this interference, Sherri.
I'm not surprised, honestly. We were getting to a really juicy subject, and then literally we just got booted out, and now we can't even get ourselves together again. So we'll be back.
I'm back to normal. I see my computer screen is back to normal now.
Okay. Mine keeps flashing. Mine's like flashing and doing weird things. So we're going to go ahead and end it today. And on a positive note. So, go into the woods, be with your family, enjoy nature, just go in with a positive mindset, positive intention, visualize yourself in this beautiful, your own orb, or your own orb of light, and just open your heart to nature, and call upon the beautiful nature, positive nature spirits to guide you, to protect you. So we don't want anyone to be afraid, and you're going to be fine. Any last words, Jessica? Anything you want to say before we end for today?
Yeah, no, please, nobody be scared. Everybody go out in the woods as much as you can. Go for a hike. Just get out in nature, and just always notice the beauty around you all the time. And just go get reset. It's like a beautiful natural reset button from our everyday lives, of all this technology and the AI and everything that's going on. It's great to go out and commune with nature, and even Bigfoot. Go do some whoops in the woods. And when I say whoops, I mean like whoop, like a Bigfoot. Okay. And do some tree knocks and things like that, because it's just good for the soul. And I also think it's important that we teach our children about all these different cryptids and the mysterious world that's around us, and I love your book series, Sherri. I just absolutely love it that you've included Bigfoot in there.
Thank you.
Because I think that we're having so many more reports of Bigfoot sightings these days, and all sorts of different cryptids, Mothman and lake monsters, and it's just kind of becoming the norm now. And I can tell by seeing Bigfoot on the back of everybody's car on the interstate now.
Everywhere.
Okay? Right? Yeah. That wasn't the case back when I first started doing this. And so I think that we've grown in leaps and bounds with just people awakening to what's around us finally. And so it's a beautiful thing. So yeah, thank you for letting me talk about it today.
Yes,
with
and
you.
I want to have you back so we can get into all the other phenomenon and some of your
Yeah.
remote viewing. There's so many things we could talk about. It's so hard to cram it all into one conversation. So we'll definitely come back and expand on it because I really enjoyed this conversation and I learned a lot. And so it was nice to sit back and listen to you. So thanks for coming on. Thank you to everybody for
Thank you.
watching. I hope you enjoyed yourself in this conversation. Sorry about the interference, but that's the nature of this work. I think it just happens. So until next time, everybody. Bye.
Bye.